Okay, so good morning and welcome to today's TOEFL listening class. So for this lesson and the first 6 lessons in this course, we're going to be using the Barron's TOEFL IBT book. And then for the final 3 classes, we'll use the official guide. Okay, so today we're going to begin on page 90. And you'll see here it begins with an overview of the listening exam. So basically gives you an idea about the kind of listening passages and the kind of questions that we get on the exam. And you'll see here it begins by saying the listening section tests your ability to understand spoken English that is typical of interactions and academic speech on college campuses. This here is actually really important. TOEFL is not a test of your vocabulary. It's not a test of your grammar. So it's very different from the kind of tests you took in high school or maybe if you've taken TOEIC. Also, they don't really care whether you have the ability to go to Starbucks and buy a coffee. What they really want to know is, do you have the ability to study in an English-speaking environment? And therefore, the exam is designed in a way to actually test that ability. And you'll see it says during the test, you will listen to conversations and lectures and you will answer questions about them. And it says in some of the lectures, the professor is speaking and the students are listening. In other lectures, the professor is speaking and the students are also participating. And you'll see here that it tells us there are 2 formats for the listening section. And you basically have a long format and a short format. And it says on the short format, you'll listen to 2 conversations and 3 lectures. And then on the long format, you'll listen to 3 conversations and 4 lectures. So basically, you have an extra 2 listening passages. After each listening passage, you will answer 5 to 6 questions about it. And more accurately, each conversation has 5 questions. Each lecture has 6 questions. So what that means is altogether, for the short format, you'll have 28 questions. And then it tells us that only 2 conversations and 3 lectures will be graded. So that means whether you do the short exam or the long exam, only 28 of the questions will be marked. And it tells us the other passages are part of an experimental section for future tests. So basically, TOEFL is quite an old exam. I think it first began in about 1960. And obviously over those 60 years, it has changed and it's evolved and it's continuing to change and evolve. And basically, they want to make it a better experience for you, but they also want to make it a more accurate test. So sometimes they want to try out new listening passages, try out new types of questions. And the best way to actually test it out is in a real test situation. So they very kindly let you help them. But of course, you have no choice. They also do this in the reading exam too. So in the reading exam, you either have 3 passages or 4 passages. And you won't have both. If you have a long reading exam, you have a short listening exam. If you have a short reading exam, you have a long listening exam. So at some point in the exam, you will do some extra section. And this bit is also important. It says, because you will not know which conversations, lectures, and discussions will be graded, you must try to do your best on all of them. So they don't tell you which are the extra 2 listening sections. So you just don't know. It could be the first one. It could be the last one. It could be the ones in the middle. So we have to do our best for all of these. And then it tells us you'll hear each passage 1 time. And you may take notes whilst you listen, but notes are not graded. And you may use your notes to answer the questions. This is important. The conversations are generally 3 to 4 minutes in length, and more likely 4 minutes than 3. The lectures tend to be about 5 to 6 minutes in length. And importantly, you do not see the questions whilst you're listening. So all you do is you hear the conversation, you hear the lecture, and then afterwards you see the questions. That means whilst you're listening, you don't know what is important and what is not important. And after 6 minutes, even if you understand everything, you won't remember everything. So in order to be able to guarantee that you have information, you actually need to take notes. It's actually deliberate. The reason the listening passages are long is because they want you to take notes. One of the things that happens when we're at university is we go to lectures and the professors talk, and often it's nothing to do with our textbooks, so we have to take notes. And then we use these notes to maybe take part in a discussion class, maybe to give a presentation, possibly to write a paper, and so on. So with this in mind, the exam has been designed in such a way that basically to be successful on the listening, speaking, and writing sections, you need to know how to take notes. And you'll see then it says, choose the best answer for multiple choice questions. So most of the questions are multiple choice, and we'll see this in a minute. And then it says, follow directions on the page or screen for computer assisted questions. So a few questions aren't multiple choice, and they will have special instructions that tell you that. Then this one is also important. It says, click on next, and then OK to go to the next question. You will see one question at a time. So you'll begin with question 1, then you press next, OK, you go to question 2. And maybe at this point you think, oh my God, question 1 was wrong. There's nothing you can do about it. You cannot go back on the listening exam. This is different from the reading exam. In the reading exam, you can see any reading passage, any question at any time. But in the listening passage, it's question by question, and you can't go back. This is why you have to press 2 buttons in order to go to the next questions to make sure that you don't accidentally move on. And as you say, you cannot return to previous questions. The listening section is divided into parts, and each part will include one conversation and either 1 or 2 lectures. And for the shorter exam, you will have 41 minutes. That includes listening to the listening passages and answering the questions. And for the longer exam, you have 57 minutes. And you'll see a clock on the screen up here will tell you how much time you have to complete your answers. And then it says to complete the questions within the time limit, you should try to answer 2 questions in about 1 minute. So on average, you have about 30 seconds per question. Now, how you use your time is up to you. You could spend 5 seconds on a question and move on. You could spend 2 minutes on a question and move on. But in general, you have about 30 seconds. It's long enough. But although you can spend 2 minutes, you really shouldn't spend 2 minutes on a question. Basically, if you need that much time, you really don't know the answer and you're just wasting your time. It's better to use that time for questions you do know the answer to. You'll see here they give us a sample conversation. In a moment, I will play this for you, but first I'm going to read it to you. So you'll see here it says, listen to a conversation on campus between a student and a teaching assistant. All of the conversations will take place on campus. So in this case, we have a student and a teaching assistant. It could be a student and a professor. It could be a student and someone from the admin office, a student and a librarian, and so on. And they'll be maybe talking about something to do with the student life, or it could be the student discussing maybe a lecture with a professor. Okay, so this one says, the man says, wait up, I need to ask you something. And the woman says, oh, hi, Jack. And the woman is the teaching assistant here. And then he says, oh, hi, listen, I was wondering whether you could explain what Professor Carson was saying about the review session next Monday. Sure. Well, the way I get it, it's optional. Yeah, right. He said if you don't have any questions, you could just use the time to study on your own. Okay, that's what I thought. Maybe I'll just skip it then. What do you think? Well, it's up to you. But the thing is, sometimes at the review session, someone else will ask a question. And you know, the way the professor explains it, it's really helpful. I mean, to figure out what he wants on the test. Oh, I didn't think of it that way, but it makes sense. So you think I should go then? Absolutely. I've been a TA for Carson a while now, and the review sessions have always helped students get organized for the test. Oh, and if you've missed any of the lectures, he usually has extra handouts from all the classes. So, well, I haven't missed any of the sessions. I know you're a serious student. I can see that. Look, if it's like the other review sessions, the first hour he's going to go over the main points for each class, kind of like an outline of the course. Then from 5:30 to 6:30, he'll take questions. That's the best part. And the last half hour, he'll stay for individual conferences with people who need extra help. You probably won't need to stay for that. Okay, so we just turn up at the regular time and place for class? Or not, if you decide to study on your own. Right, but don't you think you'll notice who's there? He said he wasn't going to take attendance. Yeah, but still. It's a fairly large class. But if he's grading your final and he remembers you at the review, it might make a difference. Maybe, but I think the important thing is just to study really hard and do your best. But the review sessions usually help. I think they're really good. Okay, thanks. I guess I'll go then. I'll see you there then. Yeah, I think I'd better go. Okay, so let me play this for you.
Review, listening section, questions 1 to 4. Conversation.
Listen to a conversation on campus between two students.
Wait up. I need to ask you about something.
Oh, hi, Jack.
Hi. Listen, I was just wondering whether you could explain what Professor Carson was saying about the review session next Monday.
Sure.
Well, the way I get it, it's optional.
Right. He said if you don't have any questions, you could just use the time to study on your own.
Okay, that's what I thought. Maybe I'll just skip it then. What do you think?
Well, it's up to you, but the thing is, sometimes at a review session, someone else will ask a question, and, you know, the way the professor explains it, it's really helpful. I mean, to figure out what he wants on the test.
Oh, I didn't think about it that way, but it makes sense. So you think I should go then?
Absolutely. I've been a TA for Carson for a while now, and the review sessions have always helped students get organized for the test.
Oh.
And if you've missed any of the lectures, he usually has extra handouts from all of the classes, so...
Well, I haven't missed any of the sessions.
I know you're a serious student. I can see that. Look, if it's like the other review sessions, the first hour he's going to go over the main points for each class, kind of like an outline of the course. Then from 5:30 to 6:30, he'll take questions. That's the best part. And the last half hour, he'll stay for individual conferences with people who need extra help. You probably won't need to stay for that.
Okay, so we just show up at the regular time and place for class?
Or not, if you decide to study on your own.
Right, but don't you think he'll notice who's there?
He said he wasn't going to take attendance.
Yeah, but still.
It's a fairly large class.
But if he's grading your final and he remembers you were at the review, it might make a difference.
Maybe. I think the important thing is just to study really hard and do your best. But the review sessions usually help. I think they're really good.
Okay. Thanks. I guess I'll go then.
So I'll see you there.
Yeah, I think I'd better go.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at some questions related to this, and in particular, we'll talk about the different types of questions we get. So the first type of question is what we call a reason question. That's basically asking us, why is the man and the woman speaking? In conversations, it's always a man and a woman. Why is the student talking to the professor? Or something like that. And basically, that will be the meaning of the question. So here you'll see it says a reason question asks you to explain the reason why the speakers are having the question. For example, why does the woman go to see her professor? And it tells us to listen carefully to the introduction. So, for example, before we listen, we will get information like this. So listen to a conversation between a student and professor. Listen to a conversation between a student and a librarian. Listen to a conversation between a student and a teaching assistant. So they will always tell you the relationship between these people. And that's one of the things that will help you to understand the conversation once they begin. Then it says, be ready for the answer to the question. So the first question in a conversation is basically almost always a reason question. It's very, very, very rare that it's not the first question. So if you're listening for the reason that the student has gone to see the professor or another person, then you'll probably have the answer to the first question. So in this case, he begins by saying, hi, listen, I was just wondering whether you could explain what Professor Carson was saying about the review session next Monday. So from this, we can see the reason he's talking to the woman is he wants to understand what the review session is next Monday. So we see this sample question here. It says, why does the woman want to talk with the teaching assistant? And very typically we'll have 4 possible answers. So we've got to ask her to help him study for the exam. She's a TA, of course. To get handouts for a class he's missed, to clarify his understanding of the review session, or to find out her opinion of Professor Carson. And our answer is C, of course. Yeah, so he said, listen, I was wondering about this review session. He wants to figure that. He's not asking for help for study. They don't discuss this at all. She mentions handouts in her answer. She explains that he always brings them up, and he tells us, well, he hasn't missed any classes anyway, so that's obviously not an answer. And he doesn't ask her about what she thinks of Professor Carson. He's just talking about the review session. Next, we have what's called a detail question. And in both the conversations and lectures, there are lots and lots and lots of detailed questions. And they're basically based upon the information that you hear. So it says a detailed question asks you to answer a question about a specific point in the conversation or lecture. And you have to choose one answer. So when we're taking notes, one of the things we have to do is include the major details in your notes. You don't need to take notes about everything, but we do want the main points. And this is usually what detailed questions will be asking about. And you'll see here it says the answer is probably not a main idea that you will recall from the answer. So you might get lucky. Maybe it's something you remembered hearing, but often it's not. So this is why we need to take notes. And as I said, they want you to take notes. So they deliberately design the exam in such a way that if you want to answer well, you do need notes. And you'll be able to find major details in your notes. Another thing you need to do is to read all the answer choices. And you'll see here it says detailed questions in the listening section are like those in the reading section. They may seem simple, but the wording in the answer choices can be confusing. That they deliberately write them in such a way that sometimes you might get mixed up. They are trying to trick you. They want you to choose the wrong answer. Make sure that you read all the choices. Don't stop if you find a choice that looks correct. Remember, you're looking for the best answer. So what happens sometimes is you'll get an answer and it's like 80% true. And sometimes they'll be almost like exactly what you heard, and they'll change a single word, which changes the meaning. So it's important that even if you think, yeah, this is the answer, make sure you look at the answers first. Confirm it. Always look for the best answer. Sometimes you'll think, well, I don't know which it is, but another way to answer questions, if it's not A and it's not B and it's not C, the best answer must be D, kind of thing. So another thing we need to do is make sure that we answer the question that is asked. So again, make sure that you read the question carefully and look for the answer to that specific question. Some of the answer choices may be true. And you think, oh yeah, I heard that. But the problem is, it doesn't answer the question. Yes, it is true, but that's not what the question's asking us. And that's another way in which they will try to trick you.